Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today's Plinky Quickie is a little bit different. Usually I'm looking at one particular parameter and giving you creative tips on how to use it, but today I'm going to be exploring how to create one particular sound, the plucked string. And on the way, I'm going to teach you how to create transients for more percussive attacks in your sounds. Most commonly in the world of synthesis, plucked strings are created by using the Karplus Strong effect. Now, if you've never heard of this effect, I highly recommend you check it out because it's really cool. Essentially, it's created by sending a short burst of noise into a very fast, high feedback delay chain and then into a low pass filter. The result is a very convincing plucked string sound. I tried to create this effect on the Plinky and I actually got a really interesting result, which I'll play for you in a few moments. But this is not how we're going to make the plucked string sound today, simply because it's not really possible on the Plinky. The techniques I'm going to show you use just the normal internal oscillators and modulators. So just for fun, here is my attempt at the Karplus Strong effect on the Plinky. I started with this very short burst of noise. I hope you can hear that. I've got the noise set to 100, the envelope is extremely short, and I've also reduced the filter level just a little bit by turning down the sensitivity parameter. It took me a while how to figure out how to get only noise and no oscillator sound, which I managed in the end using the distortion parameter, which is bipolar. If you go into negative distortion, it actually just reduces the amplitude of the oscillators. So turning the distortion parameter all the way down completely silences the oscillators, and then you can turn up the noise and just work with that as your sound source. So now I'm going to set the delay to completely wet. And I've got a very short delay time and the feedback turned all the way up, and here is the result. Not bad, huh? Now, by adjusting the delay time, you can actually tune the string. But you can't tune the delay time per pad, so it's only good for playing one note. You could probably record a few different tunings of these into the internal sampler and use pitch mode to get a full pitched Plinky Karplus Strong plucked string, but that is probably not worth the effort, and the method I'm going to show you is way easier. So I've got a fresh preset here, and I'm going to start by choosing a sound from the wavetable that I like. I've got the standard Plinky wavetable loaded. I've already found a couple of shapes that I like. So we're going to start here with the value of 37. Now, this might not sound very much like a string yet, but don't worry, we will get there. Next, we're going to set the envelope shape to something a bit more plucky. I'm going to use a very short attack time. Let's go all the way down to 1, not quite 0. And we'll use a relatively long delay time to let the string ring out. Let's go somewhere around here. Now, regarding sustain and release, you don't necessarily need these at all. If you set the sustain to 0, then only the attack and the decay stages will run, and holding the pad won't actually hold the note. But I kind of like setting it to a very low sustain so that when you hold a pad that the note stays sustained. And then we're going to add a fairly long release so that the string rings out after we release the pad. Let's hear that. It's a bit like a harpsichord. So I like what we've got here so far. You can certainly tweak the envelope stages to your taste, but there's still something missing, and that is the transient. If you've never heard of transients before, these are the short bursts of noise that happen right at the beginning when you're playing certain acoustic instruments. Imagine the moment a guitar player plucks the string, or the moment a percussionist strikes their instrument with a stick or a mallet. You get a very short, loud burst of noise that quickly decays into the actual sound of the instrument. To create this transient, we're going to use a modulator that I usually completely ignore, which is the second envelope. For that burst of sound, we'll patch the noise to the second envelope. Let's give it a modulation level of around 10, not too much. This might even be too much, but we'll have to try that out. If I tap a pad, you can hear that noise, which is using the default shape of envelope 2. Now we're going to adjust the stages of the envelope so we only get a short burst of noise. So I'm actually going to set the attack of envelope 2 all the way down to 0. The decay is going to be something like 10. And we're going to put sustain and release all the way down to 0. Let's hear that. All right, this is sounding good, but we're still not done. The white noise transient sounds, well, kind of noisy. So let's reduce that modulation to 5. Yeah, I like that. This is already sounding better. But to get this transient sounding even more ambiguous and less like white noise, I'm going to also patch distortion to the second envelope and include that in our burst. So let's do that. Let's give it a modulation level of about 30. And let's hear what we got. Great. I really like this transient. I think it sounds just like a guitar pick or a fingernail plucking the string. Before I show you one last trick, let's turn on ARP and play around for a few seconds. All right, I want to give this one last little tweak to make it sound that much more realistic. One of the big differences between synths and acoustic instruments is that synths tend to sound perfectly in tune all the time. Now, if you've ever tried to play a guitar, you know how difficult it is to get your fingers in just the right position on the fretboard to have every note in the chord sound perfectly in tune. In fact, it's difficult to play perfectly in tune on any acoustic instrument. And these slight variations in pitch are one of the things that make acoustic instruments sound so interesting. So let's try to simulate that by patching the pitch parameter to the random pad and giving it just a tiny bit of modulation. Let's just go up to like 2. So now you should hear that each time I play our plucked string, the pitch is ever so slightly different. In fact, I think it's even a little bit too much for me. Let's go down to like 1.3. I think this gives our patch an even more authentic sound. You could even use the random pad to give some slight modulation to the distortion and noise so that each transient is slightly different, which would give this an even more authentic feel. So now that our patch is finished, I would encourage you to scroll through the wavetable again. I really like setting it to 37 for this plucked string sound. I also thought that 13 was nice, somewhere around there. If you find a different setting that sounds even better, let me know in the comments. That was your Plinky Quickie on plucked strings. I hope it was good for you. I'll close this video out by improvising a little bit with ARPs and our plucked string sound. Thanks for watching and see you next time.